Welcome to the AI Applied Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Grennan.
And I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Every week, we break down the latest in AI news, tools, interviews, and discuss how to apply AI into your career and life.
Hey, everybody. So this is Connor, and I am without my co-pilot, without my buddy Jaden, for the best reasons possible. Go look on LinkedIn, look on Twitter, and you will see Jaden's family expanding in a healthy and beautiful way. So it's just me. But with Jaden out, I get to dive into the AWS conference that was happening out in Las Vegas and talk to you about some of the cool things that I'm seeing out there. Now, here's the thing. I'm a total sucker for these things. It's like this giant concert for total nerds, right? And this is the 12th annual AWS reInvent conference. There's like 50,000 people there. There's awesome guest speakers, all that kind of stuff. But the opening keynote is delivered by AWS CEO Adam Selipsky, and he is going to be talking about stuff like supercomputers and new chips and partnerships and things like that. And I just want to dive in because some of this stuff is really cool, even without being a developer myself, right? So what is he talking about, right? So the first thing that they're talking about was Amazon Q, right? And that feels like maybe the biggest announcement. Actually, I have one that is sort of like a favorite announcement of mine, which I'll get to in a second. But this Amazon Q is this AI-powered assistant designed specifically for business use cases, right? So it allows employees to do what you can imagine, right? Like have a natural language conversation to get answers and generate content and automate tasks and things like that using their own company's data and documents. So what he says is, according to Selipsky, Amazon Q is going to, quote, transform the way you think, optimize, and operate applications and workloads on AWS. So if you are already an AWS user, this is huge. But what makes it even better is that it's integrated with all these popular enterprise apps, right? Like Slack and Salesforce and Microsoft 360, all that kind of stuff. All of this allows it to access documents and data sources in this super secure way. This is like the holy grail for a ton of people, right? They just wanted something where they could, talk to their data and everything else. And this seems to be it. It provides audit trails and citations so the users can verify where the information came from, which is absolutely huge, so that you can actually trust it better. And again, the goal is just to sort of have everybody more productive, producing fast and relevant content without needing to search through all these, like repositories and things like that, right? And also importantly, it's not going to use customer data to train. So it's in preview right now, but I really think this is going to be huge. This is going to be in huge competition with everything that Google's putting out, everything that Microsoft is putting out for their cloud services as well. The cloud wars, folks, are really heating up. It's funny because we see all these sort of the models like the ChatGPTs and the Pis and the Claudes and everything else behind the scenes, guys. The real war going on here is really about cloud. It's really about chips. Like there's just so much money being made here. And that's why these conferences are so critical. So first, speaking of chips, so Selipsky, that's the CEO of AWS, announced the next generation of the custom AI chips made by AWS. And I'll tell you why this is funny in a second, but one is the Graviton 4 and the Trainium 2, which kind of cool names, right? But these new chips provide significant performance improvements for training, machine learning, all that kind of stuff. And the Trainium 2 apparently offers what they say is basically a 4 times better performance than its predecessor for training large AI models like foundation models, right? So that's kind of the big boy, right? And then you have Graviton, I think 4, which is this new AI inference chip, right? So what that does, it's what they say, I'm going to sort of like read what they say, it delivers the best price performance for running a broad range of workloads. So basically what they mean is like, data, gaming, and stuff that's not training foundational models. And so the point here is that AWS is looking to do this kind of thing where they are sort of a little bit of a clearinghouse, right? They want to give customers, obviously like the most advanced stuff, but they are interestingly not going to be really in competition with NVIDIA. And I'll get to that in a second, but just for another second on this chip war thing, to me, it's sort of like hilarious. Like just literally like days ago, it might've been, what was it? It was like November 15th. It was a little while ago, but like Microsoft announced its own AI chip called Maya, I think, Maia, which was optimized for AI tasks, right? And especially generative AI tasks. And then that that was announced not long after NVIDIA announced its latest chip offering, which was the H200, which is like the big thing. And now Amazon is announcing their chip, which just cracks me up because like these things, it's not like they just put them into production recently, but they must be working around the clock to get this stuff out. So here's the thing, and I was just saying, it's not supposed to compete with NVIDIA, these chips. It's a different kind of chip at a different kind of price point. And AWS wants developers to be able to pick and choose what they want, like the more cost-effective AWS chips or these crazy, blazing hot Ferrari NVIDIA chips, right? So this is interesting because we are starting to see these partnerships heating up, which are going to be absolutely game-changing in the field of artificial intelligence. So what we're seeing here is NVIDIA and AWS expanding their partnerships, right? So here's the thing, like I was saying, like there was a couple of special guests at this big rock fest thing, right, in Vegas. So who comes up but Jensen Huang, CEO, rockstar CEO of NVIDIA, right? And of course, it's this love fest, just like when Sam Altman said, like, hey, Satya Nadella, thanks so much for taking the time to come up on stage us here with OpenAI, right? But here's what they were trying to announce, and they did, I think, a really, really good job. They're collaborating on something called Project Seba, and I think that's like this African tree that's found in the Amazon, excuse me. And that's obviously, important because, as you might know, Amazon is named after the Amazon rainforest. But anyway, here we go. It is building together, NVIDIA and AWS, the fastest supercomputer in the world, right? And it's powered by these new GH200 GPUs, right? And so it's going to have over 16,000 of these things, right? So I keep seeing all these, what they kept saying up there, which kind of kept cracking me up, was like, oh, you can't even imagine how much compute this is, or this is an immense amount of compute power, or oh my gosh, you wouldn't even believe, right? And I'm like, well then, how do I figure this out? Because listen, I am an American. And if you are an American, our favorite unit of measurement is the football field, right? We want everything measured in football fields, right? So I don't have that. But what I did do with ChatGPT was try to figure out essentially what this means. And what I found was that, how like the new MacBook Pro is like, just unbelievably fast and powerful and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, imagine you have a MacBook Pro, right? And now imagine you get a second MacBook Pro and you kind of chain them together. Like you would never need that much compute, right? That's insane. Well, what this supercomputer is, it's sort of like chaining together 65 million MacBook Pros. And I just absolutely love that. Anyway, so this thing is going to reside in the AWS cloud. So it's essentially using the cloud infrastructure, and NVIDIA is providing essentially the engine to this car. But here's the thing. It's not like we can all just like drive somewhere and like go check this out and like play video games on it, right? This is really for NVIDIA's own research and R&D, which does a ton of like just biological research, just incredible sort of like advancements that they're making. But the rich are only getting richer and the speed is only getting speedier. By the way, one of the cool things that they are doing is that they created like this digital or like this twin of Earth or something like that. And so they're essentially like using another Earth to model out weather patterns. Anyway, they're just doing like stuff that I think that we probably could not really get our head around. Anyway, these chips are sort of like what was, to me, really the focus of this thing. Because anytime I hear like the world's biggest supercomputer, I pay attention, especially when you consider that the two companies building this are NVIDIA and Amazon. Dude, these companies are both over $1 trillion. Amazon's over $1 trillion. NVIDIA's over $1 trillion. NVIDIA just posted its third quarter earnings. The third quarter earnings were supposed to be about $16 billion. They beat that. They brought in $18 billion in the third quarter. Like, what is happening right now? Anyway, later on in the show, like again, there's music and everybody's sort of cheering. Sometimes they have to say like, hey, don't forget to cheer. Sam Altman said that a couple of times. It was hilarious when he was doing the OpenAI one. But in this case, the other person that came up was Dario Amodei. And if you've heard his name a bunch, it's because he is the CEO and co-founder really of Anthropic. So that was actually like really cool to see him up there. But it just emphasized the point that to survive, these companies are really teaming up. So you have NVIDIA, you have Amazon teaming up with Anthropic. Even Google sort of got in on that a little bit. OpenAI and Microsoft teamed up. They have this gargantuan thing. Google is sort of doing a little bit with Anthropic, but kind of going it alone with Gemini and everything else. Meta has all these open source things, but it feels like, one of those, whatever Pacific Rim movies or something like that, with all these like kaiju coming at it and fighting it out. Now, we can say that who are the big winners? Well, we are. The consumers are the big winners. On the other hand, we can't neglect safety here, right? Because as we know, with all the kaiju, the Golden Gate Bridge is absolutely going to get destroyed. You see it in the trailer to the movie. You know it's going to happen. But the really important thing for me to remember here, and the really important thing that I want to kind of get across is, for developers, things are blazing ahead. A lot of the money is going to be in chips. A lot of the money is going to be in cloud. And that is what's sort of essentially paying for us to only spend $20 a month on something like ChatGPT. But anyway, don't worry. Don't get FOMO. This is really for developers at the moment. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of this. This is the AI Applied podcast, and we wanted to show you a little bit behind the scenes. It's what's happening at that conference, and what's happening in Vegas, and what's happening with Amazon, NVIDIA, Anthropic, and others. So thank you for joining just me today on the AI Applied podcast. Please do rate and review. I promise it means actually so much. It doesn't take that much time, but it really means a lot to us. And we will see you next time.